Welcome to the Lantern Journal, where forgotten pages and quiet voices echo from the past. Tonight's entry comes from the year 1923, written by a quiet caretaker deep within an ancient woodland. Let the lantern light your way through story and silence. If you find comfort in these quiet moments, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Your presence here helps keep the light burning. Now relax, settle in, and let the journal open. Entry 1. Arrival, March 3rd, 1923. I arrived this morning at first light. The forest greeted me with a silence that felt older than memory. The air carried the scent of pine and damp soil, as if the earth itself had exhaled overnight. My cottage is simple, a single room of stone and timber, with a hearth that still held the ghost of last season's smoke. I spent much of the morning unpacking. Not that I brought much, just the essentials. A kettle, 2 wool blankets, my journal, a few books on tree types, and dried herbs wrapped in waxed cloth. The forest doesn't ask for much, only your presence. There is a path just behind the cottage, one that winds through the trees and disappears around a moss-covered bend. I walked it slowly this afternoon. The snow is just beginning to melt here. Each step was accompanied by the soft crackle of thawing frost. The occasional creak of a tree shifting in the cold. Nothing happened, and that was the beauty of it. Entry 2. The Red Fox, March 5th, 1923. It rained last night, a soft, steady rain that pattered against the roof like an old lullaby. I sat by the fire for hours, sipping chamomile tea and listening to the rhythm. The kettle let off a single hiss every now and then, like it too was listening this morning. As I checked the eastern boundary of the trail, I saw a red fox dart across the path. It paused for just a second to glance at me, its eyes bright and still, and then it vanished into the brush. I waited a few minutes before moving on, not because I was afraid to scare it, but because it felt like a moment worth honoring. The rest of the day was spent clearing dead branches from the footpath and trimming overgrowth. I carry a small handsaw and a pair of shears in a canvas bag slung over my shoulder. My movements are slow by intention, deliberate. Each snap of a twig, each breath of pine, becomes a kind of meditation. By sunset, my hands were raw, but my mind was quiet. Entry 3. The Wind in the Pines, March 8th, 1923. Today was colder. A biting wind rolled through the trees, sending the pine branches swaying in long, groaning waves. I sat on a log bench near the clearing for what must have been an hour, simply listening. There's a certain tone the wind picks up in the pines, like a slow, deep hum, a breath that never ends. There is no rush here, no ticking clocks, only the movement of the weather and the changing light. I mended the hinge on the shed door in the afternoon. The wood has swollen from moisture, but with some planing it should hold. A robin watched me from the fence post the entire time. I named her Mags. She didn't seem to mind. Dinner was a boiled potato with salt and nettle tea. Nothing more. Yet, somehow, it tasted like everything I needed. Entry 4. The Moss Map, March 12th, 1923. I've begun charting the forest by moss. It clings differently to each tree, and the patterns form a kind of natural compass. On beech bark it spreads thin like lace. On oak it gathers in thick tufts that pulse green even in the shade. If I follow the moss with morning light at my back, I can almost always find my way home. Today I discovered a hollow log deep in the western grove. Inside, a collection of acorns, carefully stacked, perhaps by a squirrel, or something with a ritual of its own. I didn't touch them. I sat beside the log for some time, just watching the afternoon grow long. The sun filters through the pines in golden columns that shift with every breeze. It's hard to feel alone when the forest is so busy doing nothing. Entry 5. Fireflies in the Fog, March 17th, 1923. The fog rolled in before dusk, thick and low. It moved like water, filling every hollow in the land. I lit the lantern earlier than usual, its glow casting a perfect circle of gold around the cottage. As night came, I noticed tiny flickers in the fog. Fireflies, dozens of them. Perhaps the warmth drew them in. They floated lazily in the mist, blinking in and out of view, like slow thoughts drifting through a tired mind. I watched them until my eyes began to close. That kind of watching, the quiet kind, feels like prayer. I'll write more tomorrow. But for now, the forest is sleeping. And I will too. Entry 6. A Morning with Crows. March 20th, 1923. I woke early to the sound of crows. 3 of them perched on the wooden fence, calling out in turn as if in council. They stayed for nearly 20 minutes, silent at times, then calling again. I didn't interrupt. I simply sat with my tea on the steps and listened. Their presence seemed to change the air somehow. Not ominous, but aware, as though the forest had paused for a breath. I made a sketch of one of them in the journal margins. My drawing doesn't do it justice. The rest of the day passed in the slow labor of stacking firewood. Drying my boots by the hearth, and rereading a few pages from an old volume of Goethe. The crows returned briefly at dusk, then vanished like a passing thought. Entry 7. The Stillness at Midday, March 22nd. At noon, everything stopped. No birdsong, no breeze, not even the creek that runs beyond the cedar grove seemed to move. It was as if the whole forest had taken a long exhale and simply decided not to breathe again for a while. I sat in the meadow for over an hour, not reading, not writing, just being. A stillness like that isn't empty, it's full. brimming with patience, with quiet attention. I think perhaps the world whispers more than it speaks. I made soup from barley and carrot this evening. The steam rose slowly from the pot, curling like mist from the kettle's spout. The quiet continued well into nightfall. Entry 8, A New Path. March 26th, 1923. I found a path today I hadn't seen before. Narrow, tucked behind a fallen birch. It led me through a section of the forest where the trees grow closer, their branches forming a canopy, so thick the light came down in fragments. It wasn't eerie, just hidden. Secret in a way that felt respectful. I followed it for nearly an hour before it curved back toward familiar ground. I didn't mark it. Some places are meant to be found only when you're not looking. When I returned to the cottage, the kettle was still warm from earlier. I took it as a kindness. Entry 9. Rain on the Roof. March 28th, 1923. Rain has returned, steady and slow. It drums gently on the roof and trickles down the stones beside the door. I've lit a single candle and sit at the small desk, listening. The flame flickers slightly every time the wind sighs through the shuttered windows. I brewed a pot of rosemary tea and took time writing letters I may never send. Words travel slower out here. Sometimes they don't travel at all. They live in the pages and wait. The fire crackles. The journal lays open. The forest breathes in rhythm with the falling rain. Entry 10. The Deer in the Glade. March 31st, 1923. Today I watched a young deer step into the glade. I saw her before she saw me. So I stood very still behind the yew tree. Her coat was soft brown, almost golden in the morning light. She looked up, ears twitching, then lowered her head to drink from the pool. The way she moved, so carefully, So quietly it made me feel as though I were trespassing in some sacred place. I stayed until she vanished into the tall grass. Later, I returned and left an apple on a stump. Perhaps she returned. Perhaps not. The forest chooses what to give and what to keep. Entry 11. Letters to No One. April 3rd, 1923. I've begun writing letters again. Not to anyone in particular. Just to the trees, or the air, or to memory itself. It's strange how freeing it feels to write without response. To speak and know the silence is listening. Some I fold and tuck between pages of old books. Others I burn, watching the paper curl and blacken in the hearth. Nothing is wasted here. Not words, not fire, not even time. Final entry. Winter is coming. October 21st, 1923. It's been many months since I last wrote. The spring melted quietly into summer, and the days became routine. So quiet, so steady, that the urge to record them faded into the rhythm itself. There were no great happenings, just the slow passing of green to gold. Birds nested. Bees returned to the grove. And the rain came often and without hurry. I spent most evenings on the porch, listening rather than writing. The air has cooled. The trees seem to hold their breath. This morning I took my time on the lower path. The moss has grown thick over the roots, and the lichen glowed silver in the shade. I sat on the stone outcropping near the hollow elm, listening. The forest said very little. Just the gentle creak of pine limbs swaying above, and the hush of wind threading through tall grass. There's a sense now, not of an ending, but of a long pause. Like the woods settling in for winter's approach. I lit the lantern early. Its glow, warm and steady, casts long shadows across the floorboards. I can hear the soft pop of the fire. The scent of cedar and ash lingers in the cabin. There's peace here in this stillness. Nothing more to do tonight but close the journal, stoke the fire once, and let quiet take over. Perhaps I will write again. But for now, the forest sleeps. And so shall I. And so the final page closes, but the light remains. If this journal brought you a moment of peace, consider liking the video or sharing your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, rest well and let the stories carry you.